Ambassador Thela of the Arcturian Alliance stood motionless as she watched Earth's orbital defense platforms track her vessel's approach. The massive rings of steel and energy weapons should have intimidated her, but instead, she found herself fascinated by their crude efficiency. These humans, barely 2 centuries into their spacefaring age, had already developed defensive capabilities that rivaled those of civilizations 10 times their age. "They're requesting our credentials again," her aide, Vorn, reported with a note of irritation. "This is the 3rd verification." "Let them be thorough," Thela replied, her crystalline form shifting colors to indicate patience. "Remember what happened at Proxima Centauri." The incident at Proxima Centauri had been humanity's first contact with hostile aliens, and the galaxy's first indication that this young species was anything but primitive. The invading swarm had expected an easy conquest. Instead, they'd encountered a resistance so fierce and unconventional that the surviving swarm ships had fled back into deep space, broadcasting warnings to all who would listen. A human voice crackled through their communication system. "Arcturian vessel, you are cleared for approach. Please follow the designated flight path to New Geneva International Spaceport." As their ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, Thela observed the sprawling city below. Unlike the perfectly planned metropolises of most advanced civilizations, human cities grew organically, adapting to their environment rather than forcing the environment to adapt to them. It was a pattern she'd noticed in everything humans did: they worked with chaos rather than against it. The spaceport's landing pad was surrounded by what appeared to be a school. Young humans played in courtyards between classes, their laughter carrying across the landing zone. Thela's aide shifted uncomfortably. "They keep their children this close to a military installation?" Vorn asked, his crystalline form flickering with concern. Before Thela could respond, their ship's sensors detected something unusual. One of the children had stopped playing and was staring directly at their vessel, holding what appeared to be a small device. The ship's computer immediately flagged it as a potential threat. "Impossible," Vorn muttered, running another scan. "That's a quantum fluctuation detector. No child could possibly." The device in the young human's hands began to pulse with light. Moments later, their ship's quantum shielding, technology that was supposed to be undetectable, flickered visible for a brief second. "Ambassador," a new voice came through their comms. "This is Admiral Hassan. I see you've met one of our students. Perhaps we should begin our discussions about humanity's application to join the Galactic Defense Council." Thela's form rippled with a mixture of amazement and concern. She'd come to Earth expecting to evaluate a young species' military readiness. Instead, she was beginning to suspect that humanity had already surpassed most of the galaxy's understanding of warfare. The meeting chamber in New Geneva's diplomatic center was designed to accommodate various alien physiologies, but it was distinctly human in its aesthetic. Natural light streamed through windows made of transparent aluminum, and the walls were adorned with art depicting Earth's military history. Admiral Hassan sat across from Thela, his weathered face betraying no emotion as she delivered the Alliance's concerns. "You understand our position," she said, her crystal form pulsing with diplomatic colors. "The galaxy has protocols for military development. Standards that have maintained peace for millennia." "And yet," Hassan replied, "those standards didn't prevent the swarm from attacking Proxima Centauri. They didn't protect the Rigellian colonies from pirates. Perhaps it's time for new protocols. Your methods are—" Thela paused, searching for the right word, "unconventional." "That child at the spaceport, you're training them in quantum mechanics?" Hassan smiled. "We train them to understand their world. All of it. From the smallest quantum particle to the largest stellar phenomenon. We find that children have fewer preconceptions about what's possible." "But why children?" Vorn interjected. "Every civilized species uses neural programming and simulation pods for military training." "Because," a young voice answered from the doorway, "you can't program creativity." The child from the spaceport entered the chamber, still holding the quantum detector. She couldn't have been more than 12 Earth years old, but her eyes held a wisdom that made Thiela's crystalline form vibrate with unease. "This is Nia Thompson," Hassan introduced. "She designed that detector you're so interested in. Would you like to explain how it works, Nia?" The girl grinned. "I watched my cat chase a laser pointer and wondered if quantum particles might play the same way. Turns out, they do." Thiela's form flashed with shock. "You based quantum detection technology on a pet's behavior?" "Nature's been solving problems longer than any of us," Nia shrugged. "We just pay attention." As the meeting continued, Thiela found her original mission evolving. She'd come to evaluate Earth's military readiness, but instead, she was discovering that humanity had developed an entirely new paradigm of warfare, one that combined the creativity of children with the wisdom of nature itself. The question was no longer whether humans were ready to join the Galactic Defense Council. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for humanity's revolutionary approach to combat and strategy. As she watched Nia excitedly explain her theories to a bewildered Vorn, Thiela suspected she already knew the answer. The galaxy would never be the same. The Arcturian delegation's arrival at Earth's primary defense academy caused more controversy than Thiela had anticipated. Representatives from 17 galactic civilizations had demanded emergency sessions of the Council, all protesting humanity's barbaric training methods. The footage of children practicing combat maneuvers had spread across the galaxy like a viral storm. High Commander Rax of the Centaurian fleet slammed his appendage against the conference table. "This is unprecedented. They're turning their offspring into weapons." Thiela watched the humans in the room, noting their calm demeanor despite the accusations being hurled at them. Admiral Hassan sat quietly, while Nia Thompson continued working on what appeared to be complex calculations on her datapad, seemingly oblivious to the diplomatic chaos around her. "Perhaps," Thiela suggested, her crystalline form emanating soothing colors, "we should observe their methods before condemning them." The Academy's training grounds sprawled beneath the morning sun. Unlike the sterile simulation chambers used by other civilizations, the humans had created a living ecosystem. Students navigated obstacle courses that incorporated natural terrain, solved tactical problems using environmental factors, and studied battle strategies through the lens of natural predator-prey relationships. A group of cadets, none older than 14, demonstrated their latest innovation, a defensive formation based on how schools of fish evade sharks. Their movements were fluid, unpredictable, yet perfectly coordinated. When faced with simulated attacks, they moved as one organism, constantly adapting their strategy. "This is madness," muttered Zextal, the Rigelian war strategist. "How can they learn proper military doctrine through such primitive methods?" "Watch closer," Nia spoke up, finally looking up from her calculations. "Nature's been perfecting these strategies for billions of years. We're just learning from the best teacher available." A siren wailed across the grounds. Without warning, the environment transformed. What had appeared to be normal trees shifted, revealing hidden defensive positions. Streams changed course, creating natural barriers. The students moved with practiced efficiency, but there was nothing rigid or programmed about their responses. "Impossible," Zextal whispered. "They're improvising." "Of course they are," Hassan replied. "That's the point. We don't train them to follow protocols, we train them to think." The demonstration continued as the cadets faced increasingly complex challenges. They used the environment in ways that defied conventional military doctrine, turning seemingly disadvantageous positions into strategic advantages. A young cadet transformed a muddy ditch into a stealth position, while another used local flora to create an impromptu communication network. "But how do you maintain discipline?" High Commander Rax demanded. "How do you ensure they follow proper procedures?" A new voice answered, Lieutenant Sophia Patel, one of the Academy's lead instructors. "We don't want them to follow procedures blindly. We want them to understand why those procedures exist, and when they should be discarded." She gestured toward a group of cadets who were analyzing data from their latest exercise. These children don't just learn tactics, they help develop them. They see patterns that we adults have become blind to. Their questions force us to evolve our strategies constantly. Thela observed as the alien delegation struggled with this concept. In their civilizations, military knowledge was passed down through generations, unchanging, refined but never truly revolutionized. Humans, by contrast, seem to reinvent warfare with each new generation. You realize, Thela said quietly to Hassan, that this changes everything. The galaxy's military doctrine has remained stable for millennia. What you're doing here is ensuring humanity's survival, Hassan finished. We can't match the galaxy's technology or experience, but we can adapt faster than anyone else. That's always been our species' strength. As if to emphasize his point, Nia approached with her datapad. Admiral, I think we've figured out how to counter quantum phase attacks. The younger kids were watching butterfly chrysalises in the biology lab, and it got us thinking about phase transitions in nature. The alien delegates exchanged alarmed glances. Quantum phase technology was supposed to be one of the galaxy's most closely guarded military secrets. Yet here was a human child, casually discussing how to defeat it based on observations of insect metamorphosis. This is why we brought you here today, Hassan addressed the delegation. Not to justify our methods, but to warn you. Humanity isn't going to conform to galactic military standards. We can't. Our survival depends on constant innovation, on seeing warfare through fresh eyes. As the sun set over the academy, casting long shadows across the training grounds, Thela realized that humanity hadn't just developed a new way of training soldiers, they'd created a new form of warfare entirely. One that treated chaos as an ally rather than an enemy. The galaxy would have to adapt or risk being left behind by these young warriors who saw battle through the lens of nature itself. The day of the interspecies military competition dawned with tension thick in the air. 3 alien teams arrived in their gleaming ships, the Arcturians with their crystalline bodies housing centuries of tactical knowledge, the Centaurians with their neural-enhanced warriors, and the Rigelians with their quantum-integrated combat systems. Each team consisted of their species' finest young warriors, all with decades of training in simulation pods. They faced a human team whose oldest member was 14. Lieutenant Patel watched as her students prepared for the trials. Nia Thompson, now team leader, studied the alien competitors with keen interest. Her teammates, Marcus Wu, Jay Park, Dahlia Okoro, and Rio Hernandez, moved through their warm-up routines with fluid grace. The first challenge, announced High Commander Rax, is tactical problem-solving under pressure. The arena transformed into a complex battlefield simulation. Each team faced identical scenarios, a hostile environment, limited resources, and multiple objectives. The alien teams immediately deployed their standard protocols, their movements precise and programmed. The human team did something unexpected, they stopped and watched. What are they doing? Zextal demanded. They're wasting valuable time. Nia's voice carried across the command center. Look at how the wind moves the holographic debris. There's a pattern we can use. Her team scattered, using the simulated environment's own physics against it. They rode air currents to conserve energy, used hollow structures as acoustic amplifiers, and turned seemingly random debris into improvised tools. Where the alien teams fought against the chaos, the humans flowed with it. They completed the challenge in half the time of their nearest competitor. The second trial tested adaptation to unknown variables. The teams entered an environment that shifted every 30 seconds, rendering pre-planned strategies useless. The Arcturians' crystalline forms flickered with frustration as their centuries-old battle formations failed. The Centaurians' neural enhancements struggled to process the rapid changes. But the humans thrived. Remember the tide pools. Rio called out as the ground liquefied beneath them. The team immediately adapted movements they'd learned from studying coastal marine life, using surface tension and fluid dynamics to their advantage. When gravity reversed, Jay shouted, "Spider web formation." They created a living network, distributing their weight like arachnid silk, turning the disadvantage into a strategic position. The alien observers watched in stunned silence as the human team not only survived but excelled in conditions that should have been impossible to navigate. "This isn't warfare," protested one of the Centaurian trainers. "This is chaos. This is evolution in action," Admiral Hassan corrected. "Every challenge is an opportunity to adapt." The final trial, practical application in real-world scenarios, began as dusk approached. The teams were tasked with securing an objective while protecting civilians and maintaining diplomatic relations with neutral parties. The alien teams approached it as a military exercise. The Arcturians established defensive perimeters. The Centaurians calculated optimal engagement patterns. The Rigelians deployed their quantum-enhanced strategies. The humans started playing games with the civilian holograms. "What are they doing now?" Thela asked, her crystalline form pulsing with confusion. "Building trust," Hassan explained. "Watch." Within minutes, the human team had turned the civilian population into willing allies. They organized impromptu community games that doubled as evacuation drills. They transformed defensive positions into communal gathering spaces that secretly doubled as strategic hardpoints. When simulated hostile forces arrived, they found not a military target, but a unified community. The human team had accomplished their objective without firing a single shot. As the trials concluded, the scoring systems displayed results that should have been impossible. The human team had outperformed their alien counterparts in every category, not through superior technology or practiced maneuvers, but through fundamental innovation. "This changes nothing," High Commander Rax insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. "They're still too young, too undisciplined." "Are they?" Thela challenged, her form shifting thoughtfully. "Or have we become too old, too set in our ways?" She watched as Nia's team celebrated their victory by teaching their alien counterparts a game they'd invented during the trials, one that seamlessly incorporated combat training into play. "Perhaps," Thela continued, "this is why humanity has survived against odds that should have destroyed them. They don't just teach their young to fight, they learn from them." The sun set over the academy, casting long shadows across the training grounds where human and alien youths now played together, unknowingly developing new strategies that would reshape galactic warfare forever. In the aftermath of the competition, the Galactic Defense Council demanded a full investigation of Earth's training methods. They sent their most experienced military analysts to observe the Academy's daily operations. What they found left them more unsettled than the competition results. Deep in the Academy's biological research wing, Nia's team worked with younger students on what they called living strategy development. They studied how ants coordinated massive operations without central command, how octopi solved complex puzzles, and how plants communicated through chemical networks. "These children aren't just learning from nature," reported senior analyst Krev of the Rigelian Science Division. "They're evolving with it." The proof came during an unexpected solar storm that threatened Earth's orbital defenses. While alien ships scrambled to adjust their shields, the human defense platforms shifted like leaves tracking the sun, minimizing exposure while maintaining coverage. The response pattern exactly matched the behavior of desert plants during sandstorms. "It's not just about copying natural behaviors," Dahlia explained to the bewildered analysts as she adjusted the orbital defense algorithms. "It's about understanding why those behaviors evolved and applying those principles to new situations." The revelation sparked a crisis in galactic military doctrine. Centuries of established combat protocols suddenly seemed rigid and predictable compared to humanity's adaptive strategies. Some species began secretly sending observers to Earth's wilderness areas, trying to decode the natural world's combat lessons. They found themselves hopelessly outmatched by human children who had grown up climbing trees and chasing butterflies. You've weaponized your entire biosphere, accused High Commander Rax during an emergency council session. Every plant, every animal, every microorganism has become a military instructor. Admiral Hassan's response was measured. We haven't weaponized nature. We've learned to listen to it. There's a difference. To demonstrate this difference, the Academy hosted an open training session. Alien observers watched as students as young as 6 learned combat maneuvers by playing games inspired by predator-prey relationships. Older students developed battlefield communications based on mycelial networks and tactical formations that mimicked murmuration patterns in starling flocks. Notice how they never practiced the same movement twice, Thela observed, her crystalline form shifting thoughtfully. Each repetition includes a variation, an adaptation. Marcus Wu, running a training simulation with the youngest cadets, overheard her. That's how nature works, he said. Nothing stays still. Everything evolves or dies. The implications terrified the galactic military establishment. Humanity wasn't just developing new strategies, they were creating a form of warfare that evolved in real time. Every engagement, every simulation, every game added to a growing library of adaptive responses. Lieutenant Patel found Nia and her team in the Academy's Arboretum late one evening, studying the way trees rerouted resources through their root systems when under stress. The aliens had dubbed them nature's warriors, but watching them work, Patel saw something the aliens missed. These children weren't warriors at all. They were students of life itself, and that made them more formidable than any soldier. We've received reports, she told them, that several species have started building their own nature-based training facilities. Rio looked up from his analysis of fungal communication patterns. They're missing the point, aren't they? You can't just copy nature. You have to understand it, grow with it. Precisely, Patel agreed. They see our methods as a new kind of weapon. They don't understand that we're not teaching you to fight nature's way. We're teaching you to learn the way nature does, constantly, adaptively, and without fear of change. As night fell over the Academy, the alien observers watched the students head to their dormitories. They noted how the children moved, not with the rigid discipline of military cadets, but with the fluid grace of natural predators. It was beautiful, terrifying, and utterly unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. The swarm returned during Earth's autumn, when the trees blazed with colors and migrating birds filled the skies. This time, they brought an armada that darkened the stars. Their ships had been upgraded with stolen technology from 17 different species. They expected to find a primitive world. Instead, they found humanity waiting. And humanity had been learning. The Academy's warning systems activated before the alien fleet even entered the solar system. Not through advanced technology, but because students monitoring deep space radiation patterns noticed changes that mimicked how dolphins detected approaching predators. They think they're hunting us, Nia observed from the Academy's command center, where she and her team coordinated with defense forces worldwide. Just like last time. Let them think that, Admiral Hassan replied, watching as Earth's seemingly chaotic defense pattern emerged. Every orbital platform, every ground installation, every civilian shelter operated on principles drawn from nature's deadliest survivors. The swarm attacked with overwhelming force, expecting Earth's defenses to crumble. Instead, they found themselves entangled in what appeared to be madness. Defense platforms moved like schools of fish, dispersing and reforming unpredictably. Ground-based weapons followed firing patterns based on how trapdoor spiders ambushed prey. The alien delegation, still on Earth after months of study, watched in awe as human children coordinated a planetary defense that defied every military convention in the galaxy. This isn't possible, High Commander Rax whispered as another swarm attack formation shattered against Earth's adaptive defenses. Their strategies, they're evolving during the battle. Of course they are, Thela replied, her crystalline form pulsing with understanding. That's what living things do. In the command center, Nia's team had integrated their civilian evacuation protocols with combat operations in ways that seemed impossible. Refugee movements followed patterns learned from studying herding animals, creating living defensive formations that protected themselves while hampering enemy movements. The swarm's rigid, programmed assault broke against humanity's fluid defense like waves against a shore. Each attack taught the humans something new. Each response evolved into something deadlier. "They're retreating," Marcus announced, monitoring the battle data. "But something's wrong. Their movement pattern. It's like a wounded animal," Rio finished, recognition dawning in his eyes. "They're not really retreating. They're preparing for a death strike." The swarm's final attack came with the power of a dying star, a suicide run meant to crack Earth's crust itself. But humanity had learned from nature's greatest survivors, the organisms that had endured every mass extinction event in Earth's history. As the massive energy wave approached, Earth's defenses moved as one organism. Every ship, every platform, every weapon synchronized in a pattern that exactly matched how single-celled organisms survived solar radiation. The swarm's death strike washed over Earth's shield like light through water. In the aftermath, as the galaxy's military leaders struggled to comprehend what they'd witnessed, Thela addressed the emergency session of the Galactic Defense Council. "We came to Earth believing we would find savages," she said, her form glowing with emotion. "Instead, we found the future. Their children don't just train for war, they learn from 4 billion years of planetary evolution. Every living thing on their world is their teacher." The council chambers erupted in debate, but the decision was already made. Humanity's methods couldn't be ignored or suppressed. They had proven themselves not just equal to the galaxy's best, but beyond anything the galaxy had imagined possible. Back at the Academy, as Earth celebrated its survival, Nia found Admiral Hassan watching the sunset. "They'll try to copy our methods now," she said. "Build their own nature-based training programs." Hassan smiled. "Let them try. They don't understand that our strength isn't in the methods themselves. It's in our willingness to keep learning, to stay humble enough to take lessons from the smallest life forms on our world." As stars began to appear in the darkening sky, new students arrived at the Academy. They came from Earth and, for the first time, from other worlds. They were children who would learn not just how to fight, but how to learn from every living thing around them. The galaxy had feared humanity's warriors would reshape warfare. Instead, humanity's children had reshaped the galaxy itself, one lesson from nature at a time.